There we go. And the chat window. Uh, Edson, that is a great question. Also, Edson, let me go over a couple of things here I mentioned last time here. So, but first I'll start with just a general um, uh, uh, welcome back, everyone, to PCB Design Fundamentals Part 2. Today is going to be our first hands-on. I know not everybody has their Altium downloaded, set up, and installed yet if you're going to be getting the license from IPC. So there's not any actual work to do this time, per se. Instead, I'm just going to walk you through, so it's recorded, so you have a recording to go back and walk through, of how to use the Altium 365 to replicate the project file, how to save files to the cloud. So we're just going to do some basic hands-on with Altium today to show you how we're going to get started and so on. But Edson has a great question asking if anybody here is using Cadence Allegro. But as I had mentioned previously, I did add a new had them add a new resources here. So first off, Edson, that would be a perfect use of the form. So Edson, you have a question for the group. If anybody out there is using Cadence Allegro, rather than just posting it in the chat, Edson, this would be a great place to come to our course forum here, go to the forum and just say add a new discussion topic right here. And you can put a subject like Cadence. Ugh, sorry, it jumped on me. I hit my itchy pad by accident. Also helps if I don't have the caps lock turned on. Um, and then you can just put a question here. Um,
Don't
are
understand.
any or use, right? So you can put a question in here, and when you post this, it will now be posted in a forum here, and any student can go in, go to this discussion, see the original, uh, reply to this, add your own comments. Now, since I'm the creator, since I wrote this one, I can actually edit and delete the original one. But you guys, as students, whoever's are replying, will get quotes as well as replies. So you can just reply to this. And so you can have discussions amongst yourselves that aren't limited to just the temporary nature of the chat window within the Zoom session. So that's why I had this created. Also, this should hopefully send out a message to the entire uh, group of students, so everybody should see it also, hopefully, as an email as well. So, anyways, that's what the use of the discussion forum is for, so that you can actually go that way. All right, so on Monday, we went over the basic theory slides. Again, as we're waiting for everybody to get their Altium licenses, downloads that have been installed, as well as those who already have licenses, sending Kelly and I an email if you already have existing license telling us what email you used to sign into Altium, that is fine, and we'll get you added to the Altium 365. In the meantime, let's take a look at the Altium 365, a couple of things. So, first off, once you have been added to the Altium 365 account from IPC, as soon as you sign into Altium right here, in fact, let me just sign out of it to show you what it would look like. Depending on whether you are already using Altium 365 workspaces for your company or not, um, you should see right here this next to your little silhouette up here for your information here. And again, it's taking a moment to sign out. It's going to think for a minute. Sorry about that. I shouldn't have signed out. There we go. It shows up here that the cloud is not connected, right? So if you are not currently using an Altium 365 cloud, So that's rather interesting. Mine is being very slow this morning. While it's being slow and thinking, since we already have it recorded now, I'll go ahead and just kill my PowerPoint right there, like this. So you'll see your user login silhouette here, and it'll say not connected. However, as soon as I've added you to the cloud account, as long as you are signed in with the same credential, you'll be able to click the little not connected, and you'll see the list of available workspaces, and you'll see the IPC corporate account. Even though it says not for students, that was how we originally set it up. It actually is for students now. Says for IPC employees only. Ignore all that. I just haven't edited that. This was all test cases for the original configuration. So just click that IPC corporate account right there, and you'll see it says connecting right here, and two things are going to happen. Number one, the cloud will turn blue right here, and you'll see the IPC corporate account show up right here, and give it a second while it thinks about connecting right here. And then the other thing that's going to happen is over here in your projects panel for workspaces, you still see your existing workspace that you have active with how many projects you have there. But now above that area, if you scroll up above that area right here, you'll actually see access to which projects you have. You can also go in and configure where on your hard drive you want those stored. By default, it goes in a projects folder underneath the root of the Altium temporary folder, and so on. Now, there's two ways to access the files that are on the that are in the cloud. One is you can click the three little dots button right here and say open project. The other is if you go to the area right here where we were just at, where the connection is, there's also, for the one you're connected to, there's this little globe icon right here, which is open up the web page. We're going to do that first right here. And you will see access to the Altium 365 workspace web interface right here. The first thing you're going to do, now, if you are not an admin on a workspace, so you folks are added as just users but not admins, you will not have all of the resources here that I as an admin have. But what you're going to go is to this projects area right here. Now, what I have done in the workspace here is I have created individual subfolders based off of the course name and the quarter. So this is IPC's PCB2 for quarter 4 of 23. That is the course you're enrolled in. Currently, there's nothing in this folder here. So if I go into this folder, there's no projects found. I can go back up here to my main project subfolder here. However, what I do have right here is we're going to find this one right here. It says IPC PCB2 start point. This is a template start point. So for those of you that are new into my PCB2 class that did not take my PCB1 class and do not have your own project left over from the end of PCB1, or if you just want to start with a clean slate and aren't happy with how you left things at the end of PCB1, whatever the case is, you can start right here with this PCB2 start point. Come over here to the three dots, click the three dots, and what you're going to choose is clone, right? So the version that I have right here, it's a start point. This is read only for students. So you guys are not able to open and edit. Well, you can open it and view it, but you cannot edit it. So what you are going to do is you are going to choose the clone option right here. When you get in here, it says the project name, and the default name for the clone is whatever the root name was, and copy. What I want you to do, and I will put some instructions in our Moodle page here. Actually, I'll probably put them in the description down here in just a moment. What I'd like you to do is change the name of the project to the actual project name right here. So IPC, PCB, let me put all caps, PCB2, and then the quarter, right, underbar Q4-23, then underbar, and I'd like you to put your name, because while you as an individual student might sit there and have a single project called IPC PCB2, right? I as a teacher am going to have 20 some copies of a file called PCB2, and I don't want to have to search around for who the author is. So I'd like you to put your name in here. So if I was doing that, I'd put like Chris Moore. Put my name in here. I'd also like you to pull this little advanced tab down right here. And for the parent folder where this project's going to live, currently you are in the root of my projects area for our workspace. I would like you to change that and click the little arrow here next to projects and find the one we're in. So for example, we are in PCB2 Q4 of 23. So select this folder right here and then say clone. And once you are done with this one here, you will now see that here in PCBQ, and we can see that Alonzo has been following along with us, and Alonzo did it as we speak. So there's Alonzo's copy of it. Here's my copy of it, and so on. Now, once you have that project cloned in the workspace, now back here in Altium, you click on the three little dots button right here and say Open Project. And from the Open Projects dialog here, it should now default you to the workspace, the cloud workspace here. You could also go to locals. This one's going to take a minute. I have so many projects available to me. I was going to go here. But what I can do here is I can say, is it a local copy? Yes or no. What's the local path? Create at, and the repository path right here. But instead, I can also go over here, and if I scroll over, instead of repository path, sorry, there's all the properties. I can come up here. First off, I can come up here and right click up here anywhere, and I can say select columns. And instead of repository path, I want to go, where did they put it? I got to go find it here. Local path, local copy, repository path created at, server folder right there, and I want to move that up. Okay. And server folder right here. So I want to find the projects that exist in projects, underbar IPC, PCB2, Q4 of 23, and then I'll find my copy of it right here. And now I can choose the open. And it's going to take a minute because using the Git technology, for those who are familiar with GitHub for software repositories, it's using the same technology to clone a copy of that project off of the server, local into Altium here. And now what you'll see is the project will show up over here. And it'll show up right here. Now that's my original one. But in just a moment, Q4-23 will show up right here in my list. There it is. IPC PCB2 Q4 of 23. It has the green checkbox. I can also do something like this up here if I want and close somebody else's project from last time. There, so I don't need that one up there. I'm just going to have the ones I have. And please forgive my computer. My computer is very slow. Over the holidays, I'm going to be getting a new computer that's up to date and speedy, fast, and all that. But for now, I'm still using my older computer. Okay, so over here, the behavior of the projects that we open from the server is going to be nearly identical to the behavior of the projects we would open local for those that are already familiar with Altium. So now I can come over here and we can see all of the schematic documents and the hierarchy state the way it was left at the end of PCB1. We can see the PCB document. We can see the library files. So we'll have library documents, both PCB and schematic library documents that were used to create that structure. There's actually quite a number of extra library files in here that technically aren't needed, but I left them in there just to show you guys how this stuff works. But anyways, I can go in here, and the green checkbox next to a document means that the document state as it is on the server matches the state as it exists here in the local copy. So let's say, for example, I do my same technique here. I'll right click on the source folders right here and say open all the schematic documents first. So we'll open up those. There's 24 pages of schematic. And while my schematic pages are opening up, how many folks out there, I know at least one that I can see out there, but how many folks out there are have come into PCB2 that did not take my PCB1 that will be starting from scratch with this project?
I'm one of them.
Yeah. Okay, not a problem. So anyway, so I have the project set up for you here. So we'll open up all the schematic documents, and then we'll open up the PCB document here as well. Whoop. So open up the PCB document here as well. And you'll notice that I not only do I have the green checkbox, but I have the white document symbol here. The white document symbol means that the document is clean and it's been saved, right? Has not been modified. And again, it's going to think here for a second. Okay, so there's my starting point template project document. Now, if I make any changes to a document, let's say, for example, up here on the main page, now we'll notice here that my project itself has seen a slight modification. That's because uh, I'm one of the beta testers for Altium, so I'm on a new version of the tool that's not released yet. So the project opens up and says, "Oh, you last modified me in version 23.9. You're on 23.10 now. Your project is a little different. Your project structure is a little different." So you can see I've got the red document icon right here. Also, if I go to a schematic page, right, let's say I make a change. Let's say I move the green box from here over to here, right? Okay, now I've modified the document, and you'll see that the document icon itself is red. When I save the file right here, I'm literally saving the local copy, okay? So I'll save that. And what's going to happen is the document icon will turn white, but the checkbox will turn from a green check to a red circle right here. The red circle means that the local copy of the file that's on my hard drive is now saved and is up to date, but it does not synchronize with what is on the server right now. So in order to synchronize back to the server, we click the little save to server link right here. And what that's going to let me do is that's going to do the little spinny here. It's also going to pull up a little dialog box here in just a moment. Again, should be a little bit faster. It's going to show you what it's planning to do. This document and this document have been modified, so these are what we're going to update. You can also uncheck if, oh, I don't want you to update the server on that one. I only want to update this one here. You can add comments to it if you'd like, you know, for like revision control. What did you do different in this one and so on? And once you're done, you click OK here. I'm also, Alonzo, since you were kind enough to have already made your copy, unless somebody else has also made a copy, I'm actually going to go open yours and demonstrate one additional, one of the reasons why we're going to be using the Altium 365. So I'm going to go ahead and open Alonzo's project as well. You were kind enough to follow along, so you're going to be my guinea pig so I can demonstrate something here.
That's okay.
Once it lets me think and open up here in just a second. So let's see here. Server folder. There we go. There's Alonzo. I will open Alonzo's project as well here in just a moment. Just going to do the GitHub again. And Alonzo, I'm assuming, have you also opened your copy of the project off of the server now as well in
Yes.
Altium? Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. So we will describe what is going to happen here. And why don't you open the PCB document, Alonzo, as well, while we're waiting on this to update right here on mine.
Done.
So if you go to your source documents here and open up your PCB document file.
It is open.
Okay, excellent. So because we're both opening files from the same project right here, first off, I see that Alonzo is also in the document editing at the same time, but, and this is going to come into play as we work on the various stages of the project right here, I can add comments directly to the project. So I'm going to go add a comment right here that says I can add an area comment or an item comment and so on. So I'm just going to add an area comment here, something like this. And it's going to pop up the little comment right here. And I'm going to say, need to add parts to the design, whatever it is, right? And I can post this, and this will now show up. And again, for those who are not familiar with Altium yet, in the Altium interface, Altium as a tool is developed very much like a software development tool where they have uh, it's one single IDE or integrated development or design environment here, and we have all these panels. So we're going to go this little panels button down in the lower right-hand corner right here. And now I'm going to choose the one here that says comments and tasks. So not only do I have the comment right here, I can click outside of it. And we'll see the little comment number 1 flicking up there, but you can also see my comment here. Now Alonzo can go in. So Alonzo, if you go into your comments, comments and tasks panel in the design right there, you can select this comment and you can choose to resolve it. You can click resolve and put some comments in there like, oh, I plan to add stuff, right? So you can add a comment back in there, you can resolve, and so on. So if you go ahead and just resolve the comment for me, and now you'll notice that the comments panel has gone away because Alonzo has resolved his comment. I can go in here and go to my configuration here and say, you know, all comments there. So I can uncheck the unresolved only. So I can see all the comments that I provide feedback to you, and you guys can give, oh, I've resolved it this way, and so on. So this is going to give us a lot of excellent capability to do this kind of commenting back and forth without having to like print a PDF, mark it up by hand, post it back into the Edge page, and so on. Speaking of which, however, if for any reason you are not able to use the Altium 365 workspace, that is okay. Over here in our Edge panel, in week 1, under the week 1 assignment right here, that same Altium Start Point project is also a zip file right here. So if for any reason you are not able to use our Altium 365 workspace, either for security or IT related issues, or you're not allowed to connect anything to the cloud, et cetera, whatever the reason is, I do still have my original methodology here, which is you can go over here, download the project start point as a zip. It will then download to your local hard drive. You'll pick the location, and I'll pick this folder right here, and I'll make a new folder here, like IPC, PCB2, Q4 of 23. I can save that zip file right there. Go to that folder location, unzip the zip file right here. And of course, you can rename the folders and rename the project file. The only file you should be renaming is the project file. However, if you go this method, you go here, and I'll sort by type. There'll be a single file in here that has the green circuit board with the white document behind it that's called an Altium. Sorry, let me get the double arrow right there. It says Altium PCB project as the file type right here. You can rename this one. So I might rename this one again. And I'll just give it underbar 2 just to differentiate it from the other one I just opened up. Okay. And then again, I could go back in here to Altium, go back here to the file and open. And in this case, I will pick F, and I'll go PCB2 Q4 of 23. Oh, sorry. Knew I did that wrong. That's file open. Sorry. File open project. Yeah. Sorry. Not file open. Not open an individual file. Open a project file, where you should have gotten the dialog again. And then instead of picking the cloud, we're going to pick the local projects right here. And then I'll go up here to the F, and same thing. Scroll down here to the IPC Q4 of 23. And there's the single project file again, and open it. And this is now going to have it in our local projects area. Everything else will be exactly the same, other than the, save to the server and download from server. So it won't have the server synchronization. And if we do a local project, if you work on a local project, not a server-based project, I do not have the ability to use the online commenting tool right here. So this commenting capability is only available to the cloud-based file server, the cloud-based file server. So I believe this is a very beneficial and powerful training and teaching tool here. So I intend to use that. But again, if for any reason you are not able to, either for security reasons or other situations where you are not able to use our cloud-based Altium 365, you can still do your projects local file based. You'll just see them instead of showing up here in the cloud area. They will then show up down here in the bottom of the main project's workspace area right there. Okay. Additionally, the assignments, if you are working on local file copy, by the way, this also goes for anybody that's planning to use a tool other than Altium, right? If you're planning to use a tool such as Cadence or Mentor, uh, where we don't have a cloud service, you'll go into the project. Number one, the project is going to tell you, what is the weekly assignment. And number two, you as students, as instructor, I have a button that says view all submissions, but you as students will have a button here that just says submit. And the submit button is where you'll drag a zip file that contains your documents to be reviewed over here, and I'll be able to review them that way. Okay. That being said, let's look up here. So even though I said there's no official assignment for week one, a couple of other things about Altium. So if you are new to Altium, if you are one of the individuals who's going to be brand new to Altium, having never used it before, Altium does have a very, very good getting started walkthrough tutorial. It's a really simple, they call it their multi-vibrator. It's a couple of transistors, a couple of resistors, capacitors, a couple of connectors, real simple project here. It's called this Altium Getting Started tutorial. Right here from the root of our area here in the resources area that I was talking about here, I have it right here, and I say Altium Getting Started tutorial right here. Now, there's two versions of this here. The first one is was last updated in this form for Altium Designer 19. So there's a slight difference in the terminology. In Altium Designer 19, they had a panel called Libraries. Starting with Altium Designer 20, they changed the name of that panel from Libraries to Components. But I like this version of it because you can download it as a single PDF document. Okay, so I can go over here and download it as a single PDF document. When you click that link, it takes you right to the Altium resources page. Okay, you can also go up here and go right here and say, started with PCB design, right? Right here, and let it do its little search. Now I can say I want to search for the getting started tutorial here. Here's the older one right here. But for file type, let's see here. Actually, let me just go to the main resources right here under documentation. I think it's a little bit easier to search this way from the Altium Live. Page right there. And go to Altium Designer. Yeah, from this one right here. Now search for, here we go, tutorial, a complete design walkthrough with Altium Designer. They still call it the Getting Started tutorial with PCB design, but it is essentially the exact same thing. If you're using the newer versions, you can find the version you're working on right here. And this is now a web-based walkthrough where you have to go web page by web page, right? Create the project schematic and document and schematic documents right here. So this walks you through the steps of creating the project, create the schematic, etc., and so on and so forth. Let's see here. Yep, and so on. Go right here. That being said, we'll go through all of this right here, and you literally would step through, how to create your parts, how to, acquire parts, find parts right here, show all the contents right here. Anyway, so you would literally step through the whole thing here. There's also a getting familiar with the Altium Designer environment for you right here, and so on. So either way, for any of you out there that are not already using Altium regularly, that are not familiar with the interface, while I will do my best to help you with everything about Altium, including a lot of tips and tricks that aren't well known and aren't well defined in here. So I am a guru with this tool, but I don't want this whole first course to be, here's the Altium tool, it's right. I want this to be about the design content. So I would recommend and ask that everybody that needs to uh, that needs to get familiar with that, follow my link here for the Altium Getting Started tutorial right here. Okay, and so on. Okay. That being said, let's also look down here at the rest of week one assignment. Right. And again, this is the note that libraries equals components here, depending on which version of the tool you're in. If you use the PDF version of the Getting Started tutorial, hmm, it's going to say open the libraries panel, and it doesn't exist anymore. So libraries is components now in the new versions. So I basically ask you to complete the Getting Started tutorial. I'm not grading that. I'm not even going to check that. It's literally to get you familiar with the interface, right? Where is the open button? Where's the, how does the project panel work? Get familiar with the panels and so on. And then we can talk specifics uh, and so on. Then the other thing I just say is explore the Altium interface. Again, all these first three notes here are just get Altium download, installed, set up, and just get yourself familiar with it. If you do go through the entire Getting Started tutorial, should take you about 2 hours to go through the whole process of, you know, uh, find the parts, put them in the schematic, uh, bring the parts from the schematic into the layout, create your rules, do your routing, do your 3D board check, do your create your manufacturing process, and so on. So the whole process should take about 2, maybe 3 hours tops. So something to do on like a Saturday afternoon, something like that. And then finally, I just say start with the project from the end of course one and load the parts and footprints into the layout. So I'm not actually having you do any actual work. Again, this is mostly just getting familiar with the tool itself. And so the way we're going to do that is up here. I'm going to go back up to my project from the server version that I have open right here. First off, I'm going to close Alonzo's PCB document just so I could demonstrate how that. I just want to demonstrate how the commenting works and how the interactive collaboration could work there. Okay. You'll also notice when somebody has their document open and has edited after I've opened it, you'll see a little yellow user icon here in place of the green checkbox that says, "Hey, this file is being edited by somebody else currently," right? So, uh, kind of things, which is fine for comments. Gets a little wonky with collaboration, but that's fine. So let me first just close the PCB document there, and then let me go back to my version of the PCB document.
What happens if two users modify at the same time the same file?
It keeps track of who was the most current modification. So like, let's say two users are simultaneously editing the same track, right? Whoever saves it last wins. Um, but there are ways, there is abilities outside the scope of what we're doing in this class um, to sit there and like two different users can now go in and say, I'm going to be and let me open up my, and in fact, there you can see it right there, right? I closed it. Alonzo still has it open. So it shows that the document is open and being edited by Alonzo, but has not changed it yet from the last state it was in. Okay. But there are ways there's a working in collaborations, and let me go back into my PCB document here. Board comments and tasks. Uh, that's mechanical pad, MCAD co-design. Where they put it? They put it in here somewhere. They just moved it, but there's a way to go in and define areas and say, I am going to be working in this area, and Alonzo, you go work down here in this area. So my changes will only be saved in this area, and Alonzo's changes will be saved in this kind of area. So there are ways to go in there and do it. I'd have to go look at their latest and greatest documentation from Altium on how they set that up now. They've got mechanical CAD and MCAD co-design here, but there's supposed to be an additional, might be the compare and merge right here. Ooh, that's a new tab. I'll just dock that one over there. Comments and tasks. Yeah, there is a way to do it. I was just reading up on it. I don't remember how to do that right now. But there is a way to set up based off of area of the board who's responsible for editing certain areas. There. In the meantime, what I do want to show you right here is how we're going to go ahead. And again, this is primarily for the people who have not used Altium before. So the way we're going to do this, unlike any other CAD tool out there, Altium being a integrated environment, right? Most other CAD tools you've ever used, whether Mentor or Cadence or KiCad, DipTrace, Eagle, PCAD that I used to use back in the day, you would open up one independent tool called like Schematic Editor. When you were done, you would save your file, and then you would generate an output file called like a netlist. You would then close the schematic tool and you would open up the PCB layout tool. And the first thing you would do is import or load the netlist. It's a similar process here, except it's completely integrated and all features are linked and synchronized. So it is going to be important on which is the currently open document. As long as one of my schematic documents is the current open active document right here, I simply am going to go under the design menu and I'm simply going to say update the PCB document. Okay. And it's going to think for a minute. Now, the first time you do it, it's going to think. Every time after this, where it's just little incremental changes, it'll take just a couple of seconds. But the very first time, especially if you've got a very large project, it will take a minute to think as it's reading through every one of the schematics right there to determine what every single one of the changes are. There you go. It's got the little blue lines. It's going to give you this. If you get a dialog about matching nets or matching component class or anything, ignore those and just hit the continue button. Do not try to do your own matching right here. Okay. And it will eventually pop up a dialog like we're about to see here in a moment that says, here's all the changes, the engineering change order. Here is every change that's going to make. If it needs to remove stuff, if it needs to add. So here's every one of the parts that's going to add. Then it's going to add nets, right? It'll add pins to nets. So there's every electrical connection it's going to make. Then it's going to add, whoop, went too far. And that's going to add new nets that need to be added if they aren't already there. Net classes, net component class members, etc. So anyways, it's a whole bunch of stuff it's going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the execute changes. The validate changes here. With the execute, it's going to validate and then execute. With the validate, all that's doing is verifying that all the changes are valid and that there's no errors happening. So it's a little bit quicker process if you want to go back and just do a sanity check before you actually push the button to implement the changes. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and hit the execute changes button right here. And it's going to take a few minutes here because it's going to slowly do the blue bar here where it's applying the ECO. And it will eventually give us green checks for check and done all the way down. The check is the validate and the done is the execute step.
Uh,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes, Edson?
there are the best sequence first validate it, then after execute, or first execute and validate, or does it matter?
The execute step includes the validate step. So I always
Okay.
just hit execute. The only time I've ever seen people use just the validate is like massively huge design, tens of thousands of parts and 100,000 nets, and you're doing a big server backplane kind of thing where it might sit here spinning for like half an hour kind of thing, right? So the validate step is a little bit quicker because also, so this checkbox right here, see where the status says check and then done? The validate only does the check, right? But the execute does both the check and actually completes the step. So I always do only the execute. That's just me. In 30 plus years,
Okay.
I've used the validate by itself once.
Nice. Nice.
All right. So I'm going to, once it's completed and all the little blue bars are done and you see that it's, blah, 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 over here, I'm going to hit the close button right here. And what you'll see now is all of my parts have been brought into the design. All of my little electrical connection lines are in there. And this is where I can start working on our project and so on. But this is the only step I'm asking you guys to do is just hit that, update the PCB and hit the execute button and let it do this. All right. Now, I know we normally have 2 hours. Almost every other week of this course, we're going to be spending the entire 2 hours, working on stuff, and I'll be demonstrating stuff. If people would like, I can demonstrate more about the Altium tool and so on. But again, this being the first week, we're still waiting on everybody to get set up with the licenses, set up with the cloud account, and so on. I'd like to keep this one a little bit shorter here. But in the meantime, does anybody have any questions on what we did? And second, is there anybody who would like me to go further and demonstrate some more techniques we're going to use?
Hi, I had a quick question.
Sure.
Is it okay if we have an older version of Altium? I have 22. So
Yes,
is
I
it
thought I
okay?
already sent you an email back on that, Nidhi, but yes, you can actually use any version of Altium you like all the way back to Altium 6, right? It'll work. Now, several of the features I'm going to show you are only in the newer version. So if you've got an older version, it won't necessarily work as well, especially with 17 and older, which are the 32-bit version. There's a lot of new features and capabilities that I'm going to be demonstrating that did not exist in the older versions. But yes, you can use any version. Additionally, the 365 cloud access right here, I believe is version 19 or 20 and newer. So if you're in one of the old versions like Altium 17 and older, you won't be able to take advantage of the cloud directly within Altium. You'll still be able to use the actual cloud interface up here so you can directly upload. So in the same way that I was over here and we cloned the project, you can also go up here, upload a project, download a project, and so on, right? So I could go over here and say add, and I can say upload Gerber or upload project right here. So you can literally upload your project to the cloud directly without having to go through Altium. It does make it a little bit slower and a little bit more cryptic to use it that way. But yes, you can actually use it. And I believe, Niti, you were using 22.4, I believe you said. So
Yes.
that is absolutely fine. In fact, there are times where, just because since I'm using some of the beta features right now, where 22 is actually faster than 23. So sometimes where I'm like, my 23 is just being way too slow. Here, let me close that and open up version 22. So absolutely, I go back and forth all the time. So it will not be a problem.
Sorry, could I make one comment here or one question? I did notice in our company that people who, or I had a colleague who could not open a PCB file which was saved in an Altium 23 dot something. The other colleague had 23 dot something less than that version, and he could not open the file actually. And that was
that should not be the case. Altium is designed where all it should give you is a little warning that says, hey, this was done in this version and these features have been disabled, right?
okay.
So for example here, and I'll show you that here, right? So let me go over here. Let me, where am I at? I'm still in the cloud. So let me go back over here. So this is server based, but let me go back over here. Now let's just randomly pick the file I just did here. So here's the same PCB document right here. And I'm all the way up into beta version 23.10. Because Altium, one of their big selling features about their tool chain is that they're completely forward and backward compatible. Newer versions can open up older files, and older versions can open up newer files. Right? So here's the version I just opened up, and I don't know. I'll just go draw a big red X in the middle of my board. Right? Doesn't matter. There. I'll just draw a big red X in copper on my board, right? Whatever the case is. I'll save that. And I'll go all the way back here, and I'll go all the way back to Altium Designer 20. And it's going to think for a minute. Of course, it's going to think for a moment. There we go. So I save that there. There. Okay, it's opening up in the background. It'll take a moment. So we'll come back to you in a moment just to prove that this works. But in the meantime, Niti, so for the server-based version right here, I'll go back up here and I'll save that one and then save it to the server. So I'll go ahead and save that one. Which again, it'll turn the local document white, saying the local document is saved and current, and will change the server status to modified locally and needs to be updated on the server. Now you can go directly to save to server, and that'll prompt you to save the local copy first. But my paradigm, my methodology I've always used is I always save my local copy first and then worry about saving to the server and so on. There we go. Nope, I don't want to open the new version or update to the new version. I want to keep my Altium 20. So here I'll go open up the project again. Okay, so I'm in Altium Designer version 20. We know that new project is here in my F drive. PCB2, Q4 of 23. There's the project. So not only am I opening up the project that was last saved in version 23.10 right here, but now when I go to the source documents and I open up the PCB file here, to do that, but then it should just in immediately here. And this might be what your colleague saw and didn't realize it also opened up the PCB documents. Warning, this document contains footprint parameters. These will be lost when opening the document in version of Altium, right? Whatever features that were added in the new releases that are not supported in the old release will just simply be stripped out of the format. But it just closes. It's just a little HTML document. It just says, here's what your warnings and conditions are. Right, this file was generated in a later version of software. So your colleague might have accidentally seen this and thought he couldn't open it. But no, you should, no matter what version it is, once you close that HTML document, it's still there. There it is. There's my big red X, and I can open up anything in any new version and anything in any old version, as long as the document type is supported.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, that's a known misconception because it does auto pop up that HTML document, and a lot of designers go, "Oops, I've got this warning," and all it is telling you these are the features that were added to the new version that are not supported in this current version you're using. Therefore, we will disable or strip out those features from the file structure, and so on. Okay. Okay. So just to free up some memory resources, I'll go ahead and close 20. And I'll come back over here to this one. So as we said, we saved the local copy. We've modified this. We're now modified locally relative to what's on the server. So again, I can hit the save to server little link right there and make myself update again. So again, I'm not required to put a comment in. You can if you want. You're not required to. You can just click the OK. And again, it'll do the little Git process right here. Okay. So back to my other question I had a moment ago. Are there any items that you would like me to demonstrate in Altium that you have any questions or curiosities about before we get started next week, once we get everybody set up in Altium, and or whatever other tool you're going to use if it's a tool other than Altium?
How do you create the new PCB document from scratch?
Yes. Okay. Great question. Altium actually makes all documents extremely easy. All you simply do is once you have created your project, now mine are going to look slightly differently than yours, and that is actually, let me start with another item here in our Edge page. In our resources area right here, as well as up on the A365, but in our resources area right here, I say this resource Altium project template. This is a template I have created for printed circuit board design. I've been in continuous development for the last 30 some years, and I'm still to this day always looking for continuous improvement. But this is a template, and this is the template you're going to see me use, where I've already pre-created a PCB document, a couple of schematic pages, the output job files, which we'll talk about later, and so on. I give this template away for free to everyone. This template has gotten numerous praises and accolades from folks in industry, especially in the fabrication and the assembly side, due to the quality and clarity and completeness, where fabricators and assemblers said, to the effect of we like yours because you have all the information we need. We don't have to guess anything, and so on. So because of my template here, you also have the ability in Altium. So in the Altium interface here, hold on a second. In the Altium interface here, so we talked about your silhouette for your login here, your A365 cloud login right here. Right next to that is this little gear icon. When you click the little gear icon, that's going to pull up the Altium tools preferences and configurations right here. Under data management right here, there's a section here called templates. When I go to the templates area right here, I have two things. Here are the built-in templates, and then here's what's now the defaults button. This is where you can add your own custom default, which basically is anytime you create a new PCB document or a new schematic document or anything like that, if you have one like a company issued, developed that already has your company title blocks and logos, and we'll talk about all that when we get to documentation week and so on, you can define those here. So I already have a couple defined here. So you'll see mine is going to be this based off of this PCB document right here. If you don't have those, you'll get a simple rectangular 2-layer board. But in either case, whether you're pointing at a template or pointing at Altium's generic, all you have to do to create a new document is the first thing you have to do is create a new project. So one of the things with Altium, unlike some of the other tools, so I had mentioned that Altium is an integrated design environment or an IDE. Unlike tools like Cadence or Mentor, where you can just have a PCB document open by itself, standalone. While I can open documents standalone in Altium, Altium is designed and all of the features and synchronization are designed around a project. So the very first thing you have to do is have a project. This is the other reason I provide everybody with a project template, right? So starting point, ready to go. Okay. Once you have a project open right here, either under the project menu or by right clicking on the project item in the projects folder right here, I can go and say add new to project, right? I get the same thing up here if I select the project menu right here, add new to project. And here are the list of all the possible documents you could add. A PCB document, a schematic, a draftsman, a schematic library, a PCB library, a CAM document, an output job file, a database link file, and so on. So in this case, you want a PCB document, you simply go over here and say PCB. And what it's going to do in a moment, it's going to create the new blank PCB document for me. It looks exactly like I don't have all the layers turned on in the version I have saved. But if I go over here and hit my letter, click anywhere in the gray space right here, hit my letter L to bring up my view configuration, maybe. Ugh. There we go. Again, I told you my computer's being really slow this morning. A little bit of lag. And I'm just going to turn all the layers on right here. On there, that looks exactly like the starting point project we just had a moment ago before I did the update. And so now you'll see I've got save to server enabled again right here. And you'll see now that I have two PCB documents, PCB1 and PCB2 right here. Okay. And you'll see this one doesn't have any server indication right here, and it shows the red document icon right here. So just to demonstrate that other technique, if I'm in the server based, if I say save to server right here, the first thing it's going to ask me to do is to save the PCB document, and you'll see where it's saving it at. So I pointed my F drive, A365, Altium, and then here's the project I'm working on. So I've got the project 2, that's what I downloaded from the server already. So I'm going to save initial local save right here. And once it does the initial local save, it will then pop up the save to server. And so we'll see right here that this one says it's not in version control yet, but I'm going to add it. So this one, PCB2, has been modified, and PCB1 has not yet been put into the server. So I'm going to click the OK again right here. And again, it's going to do the Git repository here. And now if I scroll down, whoop, too far. Now PCB1 local is current and it's up to date in the server as well as PCB2. So that's how you create a new, and the same technique works for schematics, for libraries, for anything you need to add to your project. All right? Great question. Any other question? Okay, so I'm going to do it this way. Since we do have plenty of time, I'm going to have us take a quick break. We'll take like, I don't know, 10-ish minutes or so. I'll be back around the 15-minute mark. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I don't have anything specifically new assignment-wise, so if you'd like to leave early, you can. But I am going to give you a preview of some of the work we're going to do next week once everybody has everything set up, especially for those returning from PCB1. If you remember how I had mentioned in PCB1 creating the hierarchy where it seemed a little bit ridiculous to make a single schematic page that had nothing but one LED and one resistor, and then to use the hierarchy replication, repeat command to make the 16 copies of it rather than just putting 16 LEDs on a page. And I said when we got to PCB2, I would show you what that capability is and why it's going to be helpful to us in our layout to speed up and harmonize our layout process. So I'll give you a preview demonstration of how that technique works here after break. You don't have to stay for that. We're going to go over it again next week when we actually start working on the project. And if you guys have any other questions about Altium, but why don't we take, actually, let's take like 12 minutes and be back at the 20-minute mark. And then we'll spend the last 30 minutes or so doing the like I said, I'll just do some preview demonstration of different features and capabilities in this really cool circuit replication capability here in Altium. All right. And of course, I will stay online if anybody's got any questions. And Kelly's made it to class. Hi, Kelly. How you doing out there?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening.
Excellent. Yeah, we're taking our quick break, and then we're going to come back and play more with Altium. All right. Is everybody back from break?
Yep.
Cool. And Kelly, I see what you posted in the chat. Would you like to spend a minute and go over that with the class before I continue playing in Altium? Oh,
Sure. Thanks, Chris, for the opportunity. I just wanted to share with everyone, we have a new class that we're offering next week and hope that you can share with any of your colleagues. The class is Introduction to Machine Data Analytics. The class will be taught by Tim Burke, PhD. He is the co-founder and CTO of Arch System and an expert in the field of machine analytics. For anyone who has the opportunity to go to IPC's Apex Expo, Tim has been a presenter at Apex Expo, and so if you are unavailable to attend, this is an opportunity to take advantage of this class. You'll learn about the different types of data that's available in a EMS factory, how it's structured, and how to analyze it. You'll have real world visualization tools. We'll say that 3 times fast, and a world of information that you'll be learning from a foremost expert. So even if this is not within your realm of understanding, I know that you probably have some coworkers, so please feel free to forward this. You can download it on your computer, or of course, if you want some more information, you can reach out to me. Thanks so much for the time, Chris.
sure, no problem. Awesome, Kelly. Um, excellent. So now that we are back, I wanted to show you guys a couple of other cool features. And again, we're going to get into all of this in more detail moving forward. A couple of things is we have where we set up our design rules is under our design menu and rules. Like we talked about a little bit already, the setting up the uh, voltages for the spacing and the current for the trace widths, controlled impedance, and so on. So I'll be able to go in here and set up a bunch of different design rules in here. We'll go over all that moving forward. But one of the last features I did want to demonstrate, just it's kind of a tease. We're going to get into how we're actually going to use this after we set up our routing rules correctly. But if we remember back here, again, especially for those who are new and who did not take my PCB1, when we created our project schematic in PCB1, I had you create it using the advanced hierarchical schematic capability where we created block diagrams here. So, and we'll take a look at our LED schematic here, as I was mentioning a moment ago. Our LED schematic here says I have a resistor, an LED, and 2 electrical ports that connect up to the top level. And up here at the top level, for the LED right here, I basically used Altium's repeat keyword on the schematic page right here and said repeat it from 1 to 16, so give me 16 copies of this. I also used the bus nomenclature with the repeat keyword on the individual signals here. So I have 16 individually addressable or wireable nets, so each LED can be turned on or off independently, such as with diagnostic LEDs, versus having all 16 on or off at the same time, like the white LEDs would be the backlight of an LCD screen. So we have our 16 copies right here, and when we look at our LED page right here, we see the main editor and all 16 copies of the LED page showing up right here. Shrink that down a little bit so you can see all 16. So there's all 16. Each individual copy of the LED page also uses the indexing naming, so R13.1, R13.2, so we get the indexing of the naming here. Now, while it could be made, the argument could be made, it's like, yeah, that's a little bit overly complex for just a bunch of LEDs, just put them all on one page, right? Copy paste, put all 16 on one page. And while I agree that's one way, and for the people who took my PCB1, remember we went over the pros and cons of the different ways of doing that. But what we're going to do over here is going back over here now to our PCB document, looking at this one right here and making sure I'm in the correct one right here. The reason I had us do it that way is because now I have each copy of the LED is its own independent little copy of a circuit right here. And I'm just going to pull this one off to the side for now. These are what Altium calls rooms. Other tools call them areas and have other features. But this little salmon colored little feature here, we're going to call a room in Altium. And then from within there, I can take the one device, I can rotate it, I can flip it to the back side. Again, more on how I'm doing the rotating and the flipping in the coming weeks when we actually start working on it. But I might put my part right there, and then I might choose to do my routing. So I know these two legs share each other, so we talked about this, using the optimum z-axis right there. So I'll go over here, and I might route a connection to here, go to my bottom side layer right here. And for the other two that are going to go off and wire to somewhere else, I've got a high side and a low side. So I might choose to pull both of those off over here. I might put one via over here. And I might put the other via over here. And so on. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that room shape that I just did right here. And I'm going to find it where it goes to the little corner double arrow right there. And I'm going to make the room just big enough to cover all of the copper, including the via features right there. And I'll repeat with this other corner right here. Something like that. And then what I can do is, and this is the cool part of the tool, for those who have not seen this before, under the design menu, under the rooms submenu, I'm going to say copy room formats. My stats bar is going to say choose source room, then choose destination room. I'll get the pop-up. I don't need to do room 1 again because I've already done it. And when I click OK, I now get 16 exact mirrored replicated copies of my circuit. And I can do even one more cool thing. I can grab this room as a room. I'll bring this up here, and we'll talk blue boxes and green box selections here next week, but I'm using a blue box select. I'm going to go all the way up here like that. And I'm going to go and do something like this and say design rooms submenu again, but this time I'm going to say arrange rooms. And I'm going to say I want 4 columns, 4 rows. So I want a 4x4 array. These I might use these like diagnostic LEDs for, you know, a motherboard or something like that. And I'm also going to say auto spacing and place onto the grid. And I'm going to also say sort in ascending order. And I'm going to say select the origin using the mouse. I'm going to say I roughly know that I want to put those LEDs kind of up here like this. I'm going to take all 16 copies of that and make this nice little array right here. Everything is spaced based off of those room boundaries right there. Starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So in doing that, I'm able to much more quickly and efficiently place and create these structures. Now, for something like an LED, yeah. Could we get away with doing this completely by hand here? Absolutely. It's not that hard. It's 2 parts, 3 wires. But think about something like a amplifier circuit or a instrumentation amp or an A to D converter circuit, something where you've got many, many more parts, especially in the analog routing that we talked about, where precise placement within the structure of the circuit block is going to be more critical. So in those cases, I can take my time, focus on one route at a time, you know, just work on one of them, and then say, I have figured out exactly how I want the copper traces, the vias, the placements, and everything, and I want all 16 or 20 or 50 or 100 copies to be exactly the same. And then by also using this room, I'll be able to sit here. Once I've done the routing like I did here, I can then grab this and think of it like a cookie cutter, right? Or a rubber stamp, and literally move my fully routed little circuit functional block, move it and place it in the design where I want it placed. And then I only have to worry about the interconnection from that functional block to the next functional block. So what we end up doing is we start thinking in terms, less in terms of individual board piece by piece by piece, but we're now able to start thinking in terms of block diagram level routing like we have right here, where we might sit there and say, okay, I'm going to do all 16 of these, and then I'm going to worry just about the block of wires from right here, the bus of wires, to the next block, and so on. So in that way, using the hierarchy is going to give us a lot of power and a lot of capability to take care of our repetitive routing. Especially if you've ever done any high reliability designs where you have to rely on you know, very precise routing and placement of every individual part and so on. So anyways, I just wanted to demonstrate that little feature right off the bat. Again, starting next week when we actually get into the design, we'll actually see how we go. I'll go into more depth of step by step how we do all these different processes in here and so on, as well as if you remember back in PCB1, we created the net classes, right? 1 amp, 5 amp, 10 amp, 50 volt, you know, digital, single-ended, differential, and so on. Starting with this, starting next week, we'll start looking at how we build our stack up, modifying the stack ups is there, how do we define our characteristic impedances, profiles, and then going in and seeing also how to use different calculator tools to calculate that implement the IPC 2152 standard for how to implement our trace widths, our voltage charts from 2221 to set our clearances and so on. So we'll do all of that starting next week. But let me open it up here. So other than this cool feature, I just wanted to give you the teaser of something that's really cool in here. Is there any other features, tips, techniques, or anything that anybody would like to see in Altium before we call it an early day this week? Yes, no? Any questions out there? All right. If there are no questions then, like I said, the assignments this week, there's no real actual assignment to do to turn in to submit. Again, as Kelly and I are going to be spending the remainder of this week, probably and we'll hopefully get everything done by Friday, is making sure everybody gets their license emails and and then once we get you licensed, get you into the Altium 365 cloud. But for those who already have that access or who might still be relatively new, once you get your Altium, again, go through the uh, getting started tutorial walkthrough. I also, if you're not going to be using our A365 cloud, download the start point here. I also recommend everybody grab a copy of my project, the Altium project template right here, just so you have it for a copy for yourselves, and so on. Basically your goal this week is just to become familiar with the Altium tool and the Altium interface. If you have any questions, please let me know. But otherwise, if there are no questions or no curiosities anyone would like to see about Altium or the web interface or anything like that, if there's no questions, I say we take 25 minutes back today and call it an early day, and we'll get started in earnest next week with the heavy lifting on doing the placement and routing and so on. Right. Cool. Yes, Daniel.
Oh, I was just gonna say, thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right. Yeah, if there's no questions, then yep. I say we all take a 25 minutes back and have a happy, safe work week. Remainder of your work week. And I will see everybody next week for the next round of lecture slides.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, Chris.
Cheers.
There is a question in the chat.
Oh, there is a question in the chat. Okay. Can I validate footprints through Altium? Depends on what you mean by validate, Fazil. Do you mean check that they comply to the 7351 for, say, surface mount? In that case, there's not really a validation necessary, as they are, the wizard actually implements the 7351 already. So if you build your footprints using the IPC footprint wizard for 7351, then by definition, they're compliant to 7351. If you mean validate from the point of view of do you have the right clearances, the right copper to copper clearance and so on, you effectively get that because of our design rule checks in the design side of things. So I'd be curious what your intent by validate or question about validate means. Are you looking for compliance to IPC 7351 for surface mount, or are you looking simply for manufacturing adequacy to like the 6012 and the J-Star 001?
Okay, it's clear now.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yep, not a problem. And we will go over that in more detail as we go through the course. Excellent. And thank you for pointing out that there was a question in the chat. All right. Well, again, if there's no questions, everybody have a great work week.
Goodbye.
All right. And the Dennis is still out there. Hey, Dennis. I mean, hit stop on the recording.